I'm broadcasting from home in snowy, beautiful, wintry Colorado. Boulder County to be precise. This is a new series we're starting today on country guitar solos. We're going to be learning a simple country guitar solo every week. I got my country guitar on, I got my country shirt, I'm ready to go. I'm just making sure I'm in tune. Just kind of scrambling a little bit to get set up today. That happens sometimes, you know, there's a lot going on, even for those of us working at home. Certainly grateful for Jam Play giving us this opportunity to do some live lessons from home, as we have no other choice right now. So on Tuesdays I'm doing classic Americana songs and tunes. Thanks for those of you who joined me on Tuesday. That's going to be a really fun series. And I am especially excited about this one. So you can play acoustic or electric guitar. However, as this progresses through the weeks, you're going to be probably wanting an electric guitar because there will be some bends and things that might be a little bit difficult technically on acoustic guitar. So obviously I'm playing a good old classic Telecaster here. And but any type of electric guitar will do. Because there are, like I said, some techniques that are going to be electric guitar oriented. Today, we're starting where I believe a lot of this began in the 1950s with Luther Perkins, Johnny Cash and the Tennessee Three. Sounds like I'm pretty much in tune there. And Luther's style is very simple. However, it's very intentional, and there's a few things that are really subtle about Luther's style, and there are experts on this style who can play it to a T. And really, there's only a few things to know starting out. You want to be on your bridge pickup. We're going for this twangy sound. And Luther was famous for playing, like I said, very simple lines, very simple solos, and also very simple rhythm parts. And we're going to get into all of that stuff in this solo. So, check your tuning here. The chord progression we're using is going to be a 12-bar blues in the key of E. So maybe one time let's just kind of strum through the chord progression, okay? And I'm going to be using kind of a boom strum kind of rhythm, okay? So I'll just kind of play through the rhythm just to get this sound in your head. So here we go. 1, 2, ready, and E chord. 1, 2, 3. One more measure on an E. Then we go to an A chord. So that's our 12-bar blues form, just making sure you know those chords. Now these could all be 7th chords. Obviously we're doing a blues, so every chord in the blues can have that flat 7 on it. And especially the B7, the 5-7. So those of you who haven't done much with a B7 chord, there's a couple tricks to this. One of them is that if you're on an E chord, your second finger will be in the same place when you switch to B7. So I'll leave my second finger down, I'll kind of just switch the position of the first and the third, and then put my fourth finger up on the second fret of the high E. Okay? So that's a chord change you might want to practice just on its own a couple times. So the purpose of this series is to give entry-level players some neat stuff that they can play and some real practical tools that they can take and incorporate into their country guitar playing. And country guitar is the same as every other type of guitar. It's built on notes, chord changes, scales, and techniques that can be applied to anything that you play. So becoming better at country guitar and getting some country vocabulary will help your rock playing, will help your blues playing, and vice versa. So, feel free to send in questions as we go. I'm going to ask Jeff to pull up the notation, and we will go ahead and get started on this example. Now, it might be kind of a bit of extra credit if you understood the E major scale. You don't need to know that for this example, but I'll just run you through it real quick because you might as well know how to play an E major scale on the guitar if you haven't done this before. So starting on the low E string, that's your tonic note, E. With my second finger, go ahead and do this with me. Second fret. There you go. That's an F sharp. That's the second note of the scale. You got to reach up with your fourth finger to the fourth fret there. And then open A. And then second fret. And then fourth fret with your fourth finger. First fret. And there's your tonic E. Let's go ahead and descend to that same order of notes. Here's E. Going back down. First fret. Fourth fret of the A string, second fret, open A, fourth fret of the E, second fret, open E. Okay? All right, so that's the low octave. Let's do that one more time, and then we'll cover the high octave. And this is why we have to use our fourth finger to play an E scale, because you have a couple of first fret notes in there. So an E major scale, in all practicality, is spread out across your entire open position. Now, when we play this example, we don't have to use the fourth finger really, okay? So don't worry too much about that. This is, again, sort of for extra credit, but also because I'm kind of a stickler for understanding music and understanding where it comes from and how it is built and the building blocks of it, and the E major scale is a big part of that. So here you go, one more time, low E open, second fret, fourth fret, open A, second fret, fourth fret, first fret of the D string, second fret, that's your tonic note. Whenever I get to the tonic and I start a new octave, I rest, and then I'll play this tonic note again as I do my ascending up the scale from this note. So here you go, play this note E, and then fourth fret, first fret of the G string, second fret, open B, second fret, fourth fret, open E. Okay? We've got three higher notes, so go ahead and play that open E one more time. Second fret, fourth fret, right back down, second fret, open. So I'm just stopping every time I get to that tonic note. So I'll start on this tonic note E, the root note, and descend. E, fourth fret of the B string, second fret of the B string, open, second fret of the G string, first fret, fourth fret of the D string, second fret. Rest on the tonic note. Now we'll descend from there. First fret, fourth of the A string, second fret of the A string, open A, fourth fret of the E, second fret of the E. There you go. So now, knowing that E major scale, you could figure out melodies and stuff. You could do out all your simple melodies, you know. But anyway, let's get into the example now. So Jeff, go ahead and pull up the notation if you haven't already. Jeff and I are communicating via Skype text here, and I'm sure he's making this all look really good from the jam play end of things. So I'm just going to play this example down for you once with the rhythm track, and that way you will hear it in context, and then we'll start breaking it down, okay? But you'll get the gist of what we're doing once you hear this. So that was at the mid-tempo. We have a slower tempo track and a faster tempo track. What is one thing that you noticed about this? Well, one thing you may have noticed is that I'm using a very similar rhythmic figure throughout. The other thing you might notice is that I'm using some blues notes, some notes that are not in the E major scale. Another thing you might notice is the first time through I played this example in the low octave. The second time through, exact same notes, an octave higher. So that's a few things to notice whenever you're listening to music. You know, it's good to just kind of observe a few of the general outlines of kind of what's happening there. All right? And I'm taking figures, really similar figures, and playing them over each of the chord changes. So this whole thing sounds really cohesive, and there really isn't that much material to learn. So here we go. From the very beginning, measure 1, I guess what we should probably do is start by just playing the picking pattern. On the open E string, just play an open E note like this. Okay, so what I'm doing here is actually down, down, up, down, 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 up, down. Okay? That's the kind of Luther Perkins picking pattern. Okay? So let's try that together really slow, just on an E note, the low E string. A ready and a slow, and down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down. One more time. Last time. Okay? So whenever there's that syncopated little hitch rhythm happening, dong, 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 that's the pattern. Down, down, up, down. And then the rest is all downstrokes. So this first measure goes... the first two measures. So the first measure itself is open E, down, down, up, down. On the downstroke, you grab that 4th fret, and I'm just going to use my 3rd finger. I'm going to be in this position, okay? And then 1st finger plays the 2nd fret of the B string. 4th finger plays the 3rd finger plays the 4th fret. Right back to your 1st finger, back down to that 4th fret, and then open. So just the first measure. Ready and a slow and... Next measure starts with just the 2 open E down strokes on on the up, you catch that 4th fret, and then play it again. Then 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the A string, open D, then right back down the scale, 4th fret, 2nd fret, okay, and land on that 4th fret. So, first 2 measures in context sound like this. Then you're on to the A string from there. So let's practice those first 2 measures together really slow. Ready and a slow and. Then you're on the open A string, okay? And on the A, we play the exact same figure that we just played in the previous measure on the E string. Now we're going to play that exact figure on the A string. Okay, so try that. It's open A, and then the 4th fret twice, 2nd fret of the E string, and then open G, 4th fret of the D, 2nd fret, 4th fret of the A. And then right back, we're going to resolve it to this E note. So what is happening here? Well, I'm playing basically an E chord arpeggio at the beginning. That's the root, 3rd, and the 5th of an E chord. The 3 notes that make up an E triad. And then we got the 7th in there. So, working the 7th, the flatted 7th of an E7 chord. So that outlines an E7 chord. Next, we're outlining an A7 chord by playing the exact same figure starting on the A string. Okay. Next measure, measure 4. The first measure of the 2nd line, 2nd system. First finger plays the tonic note E, and then again, using that same down, down, up. And then you got the 4th finger on the A string, and then the 2nd finger, 4th fret, 3rd finger. And then down to the 4th fret of the E string. And then back up to that 4th finger. So that figure in context goes. So it's just kind of playing the figure we were playing before, just kind of in a descending order. And then to wrap up that measure, you got your 3rd finger there on the 4th fret, and then we're going to play open A, and then 1st finger. So I kind of shift back to open position for this final lick. And I lied, you do have to use your 4th finger, but we're not using it all the time. So this figure on the B7 chord is that note twice, 1st finger on the 1st fret of the D string, 4th finger there on the 4th fret of the A string, right back down to the B note. And this is a neat little ending lick where we go A, and then 3rd fret of the E string, 2nd, open. So that's a real typical kind of just little bluesy flatted 3rd that we're throwing in there. So in any case, this figure is obviously playing notes that are from the B7 chord. So again, each of these figures outlines its respective chord. Open, 3, 2, and then to wrap it up, I'm going to go to that 2nd fret of the A string and then down the scale from the 4th fret of the E, 2nd fret, open. So, the last 2 measures, the B7 and the E chord, those 2 measures in context are get to that little walk up in a second, but let's just play from the B7 to the E, and I'll stop you when we get to that low E note, okay? So here we go, starting on the 5th measure, second measure of the second line, B note, B7 chord, ready, and a slow, and... So, we have a couple questions coming in. I'm going to answer them in a moment, but let's just play with the track at the slowest tempo. Let's just play this first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 measures, okay? The lower octave of the example, and then we'll move on to the higher octave after I answer the question. So here we go. With the track, I will count you in. Ready, go. So, if you got that, great. If you're still getting there, don't worry. You'll be able to practice a little bit and come back to it. All you JamPlay members will be able to access these videos on the archives at the site. Obviously, you'll be able to download the tablature and the notation and also the rhythm tracks. A couple questions. Is how you pick this important, all down versus up, down, and such? Yes, I believe it's important, and I'm sticking to the kind of good guitar technique guidelines. Now you might see Luther kind of do, you know, one pick direction or another. I'm sticking to how I think you should play because eventually this might get going fast. Like what if we get to the fast tempo here? It's going to be important for me to stick with it. You could probably get through this example even at that tempo playing any kind of picking pattern you want. However, you might ultimately get into, and later on in this series we're going to be getting into stuff that is very important to keep your pick direction because it might be going by a little faster. You know, let's say we're doing something like... That's what you're aspiring to, even if you're not quite playing that fast. If we are on the upper edge of our threshold of what we can play, it becomes ultra important to keep your pick direction consistent. So that's all I really have to say about that. Yeah. So do your best to stick with the picking pattern there. This aligns with also with how you would strum things. If we were strumming a rhythm that went like... I would certainly not want to see you going... I wouldn't want to see you strumming it this way. I can't even do it the wrong way. The pattern goes down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up. It's based on if you were doing this all the time, and then you leave out the ones you don't want. And then you can really just chug along and you don't have to think about it once it becomes automatic. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the second half of this. And what this is going to start on, you see a little, on the notation, you'll see a double line, a double bar line at the end of measure 6. And that just means we're moving on to the second half. And there are 3 notes right before that double bar line, and these are pickup notes. Pickup notes to the next measure where that second half of the example begins, which is going to be the same example that we played 1 octave higher. Okay? So, starting there on the pickup to measure 7, we're going to be in open position for this. So here's your second finger on the 2nd fret, 4th finger on the 4th fret, 1st finger, 1st fret of the D string, and there you are on the tonic note on that first measure of the 3rd system down, measure 7. And here we go on the down, down, up, and then another up, and then a down on that 1st fret of the G string, and then all down strokes, open B, 2nd fret, open, 1st fret there. Okay, so that measure altogether is the next measure is, again, just like we did in the previous half of the example, an octave lower. Okay. So, notice, you might see this a little better now. How that outlines the notes of an E chord and an E7 chord. Okay. So, let's go ahead and play the pickup notes. And then the first 2 measures there, measure 7 and measure 8. Okay? So, ready and a slow. I'll count you a little better. 1 and a 2 and a go. A little side note here, if you really want to know more about this style in much greater detail, check out my Classic Country Chops, I think that's what it's called, series here on Jam Play. It's basically a country guitar method from scratch. Okay, so there we go. Now we're moving on to measure 9, the 3rd measure of the 3rd system, where we get to an A chord. And I would play it this way. Okay? It's almost just like you're, holding down an A chord to strum. As soon as you play that last note of the previous measure, you can just place your 2nd finger right there on the 2nd fret of the G string and do your little down, down, up on that note. Yeah. Down, down, up, down on the E string, and then all down strokes, 3rd fret, 2nd fret open, back to there. So that measure is and then moving on, open E, okay, and then the walk up to the Beano. So we'll just take, let's just play the first 4 measures of the second half. So in other words, the pickup at the end of measure 6, the pickup notes to measure 7, and then the 4 measures starting from there, where we go E, E, A, back to E. Okay? So real slow, a 1 and a 2 and a go. Okay, so we're on that B7, which is measure 11, the second measure of the fourth system. So we got to use the fourth finger again. It's an open B twice, fourth finger, fourth fret, twice, second fret, open, and then we do that little thing where we go down via the flatted third. So here's the second fret of the G string, open G, that's that little bluesy note, fourth finger on the fourth fret of the D string, back to your tonic note, and then we kind of do that last little figure, open B, first fret of the G, fourth fret of the D, back to the tonic note, and then the pickup notes, just like we did. And there's a way to get to the rhythm pattern from here that we'll discuss in a moment, and we'll get into the Tick-Tock Rhythm part that you would play over this. So this would be like, you know, if you're in the Johnny Cash band and Johnny Cash is singing a verse, you'd be playing the rhythm part, and then on your lead or your break in between verses or choruses, this would be like the guitar solo. Okay? So let's try the whole thing through like really slow one time, and then we'll try it with the track, okay? So the entire example from the beginning, feel free to go ahead and read along with the notation. And here we go, really slow. 1, 2, ready, and go, and... Cashing in big time. There's no money past the fourth fret. That's what they say. Okay. So please send in questions if you have them. I'm here for you. While you're thinking of that, let's go ahead and try this with the rhythm track at the slowest tempo that I have here, which is 60 beats per minute. Okay, get ready and I'll count you in. 1, 2, ready, go. So you notice how most of the notes I'm playing long, I'm letting them ring. At the very end, there's a real particular phrasing thing when I get to this. Some of those notes I like like to play really short just for emphasis and for like really locking in the rhythm at the end of the passage and getting into the next passage. So that's fun. Like I said, really take your time. If that's a little too quick for you, if you're ready for it, let's go ahead and try this at the next tempo. We'll go ahead and move through all the tempos here. This would be 80 beats per minute. So here we go. I'll count you in. 1, 2, ready, go. So, I mean, you're hearing a lot of common themes here in the style, right? I mean, you've watched Bonanza, right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This is just that old country western, Sun Records, rockabilly era, Johnny Cash, and the Tennessee Three, Luther Perkins, kind of boogie woogie style lick. All right, so now just once through on the fast tempo. If this is too fast for you, don't worry about it, strum along. But let's give it a go, eh? Here we go. 95 beats per minute. 1, 2, ready, go. Clearly I'm demonstrating the Tick-Tock Rhythm part. All right. So here is the Tick-Tock Rhythm. And we're going to start on the first measure of the actual rhythm example. The measure at the end of the lead example is just kind of a way to get back to the rhythm part from the lead part. Because if you listen to Johnny Cash albums with Luther Perkins playing the guitar, he always finds a way to get right back to the rhythm. And he always will segue kind of seamlessly from the lead part to the rhythm. So in this example, we go, let's see. So that's that one little measure which helps you to get back into the rhythm part. So, no questions? Come on, isn't this really exciting and interesting? I'm just teaching it that well. All right, send in your questions when you get them. So moving on to the Tick-Tock Rhythm. The whole principle of the Tick-Tock Rhythm, and this word tick-tock is simply just describing the sound that it makes. Now I am going to put a palm mute on this. I've been listening while I was preparing for this lesson. I was listening to a bunch of, original Johnny Cash, Sun Records recordings. And Luther, sometimes he palm mutes and sometimes he doesn't. It just kind of depends on the song. And they were all, people make fun of them. And this is depicted really well in the Johnny Cash movie, the Walk the Line movie, where Carl Perkins is making fun of Luther Perkins for playing such simple stuff. And Luther kind of winks at him and says, well, I just kind of do what I do. He was so good at what he did. And that band is so locked in. And, there's a reason why those were huge hits and why Johnny Cash became such a huge superstar. And a lot of it was just the sound of that band was so unique. and they played just exactly the right stuff to lock each other in to those rhythm parts. So, yep, it was Luther Perkins, Marshall Grant on bass, and Johnny Cash. That was the original band. No drums, because drums were not allowed in the church back then. They eventually started adding drums to the recordings. All right, the Tick-Tock Rhythm. Here's another fun thing, and you could try this if you want. Stick a dollar bill in your acoustic guitar, kind of weave it between the strings, and strum. That's how they got the, they call it a sock rhythm. And that's also depicted in the Johnny Cash movie. But you put a dollar bill in the strings, you put a $100 bill if you're feeling really lucky, and that deadens the strings and gives them this papery kind of flappy sound. So that's a fun little trick. Oftentimes they would emulate the drum sound with that technique. All right, Tick-Tock Rhythm. So what you're doing here is basically strumming through the changes as if you're doing a boom strum. That's what Johnny would be doing. He'd either be doing a boom strum or that kind of strum. And Luther is just playing the low notes of a boom strum, like the low E, and then this note, then that note, then that note. The root, the octave, the fifth, the octave. Go ahead and try that on E chord. Just play an E chord for a while. This is your Tick-Tock Rhythm on the E. Now try that palm muted. That's the one there. Now you're doing it. There's your Tick-Tock. So that's how you do that on an E chord. I gotta refresh my screen here. Stand by. Tons of thumbs up and hearts. People are just quiet. You're all being very polite and paying such close attention. Okay, a couple questions came in. I'll get to those in just a moment here. So there's your Tick-Tock on the E chord. Now, not even looking at the example necessarily, let's just try the Tick-Tock on an A chord. You can hold your A this way, or I'm usually probably going to do this. The old plow handle A, or so they say. And now you play the exact same configuration of notes, but it's going to look a little different because you're starting on the A string, and then you got that fretted note on the D string, and then your fifth is actually the low E at this point. So that's your Tick-Tock on an A chord. A, fifth, fifth, fifth. So if you took out the extra note, you would hear bing, 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 which is the bass line. That's what the bass is playing. And you're going to hear that on the rhythm track as well. This is all going to make a lot of sense once we play along with the rhythm track. So it's just like what we call shadowing the bass, or tick-tocking the bass in country terms. But in general music terms, we call that shadowing. Playing the same thing the bass is playing, we're an octave higher than the bass, and we're adding that little extra tick. So that ties in the acoustic rhythm boom strum with the bass line. So try that on an A chord, just an A chord boom Tick-Tock for a moment. Ready and slow and... I totally missed that. Let's try it again. On the A chord. Ready and go. A. Great. You can hear that reverb really crackling on the amp. Okay, take a quick break here for a question. Are you using the Mixolydian mode? Well, yes. On these examples, a Mixolydian mode is simply a major scale with a flatted seventh. So, sure, when I'm playing this, that's nothing but a, pentatonic scale, major pentatonic, then, sure. And then that mode transposes to A. So yes, you could say we're using the Mixolydian mode, and we're also just playing stuff that's in the blues language. So yeah, good question about modes. Yep, Mixolydian mode is the major scale with the flatted seventh. Very good. When you are training for speed, do you overshoot your goal to give yourself some headroom in your technique? That's a very good question as well. Yes, I sure do. And speed training, we just released this new Mastering Bluegrass Flat Picking course on Jamplay, and there is an entire lesson, or maybe even 2 lessons in that course on this very subject of speed training. But yes, indeed, it's a tricky balance because you don't want to play so far ahead that your technique goes out the window. You want to work on your technique at reasonable and controllable tempo, and then slowly inch that up so you still feel in control and you're still playing with good technique. And then at some point you can blast way ahead and just see what that feels like, and expect that you're going to miss some notes. And the trick is to just stay really loose and light. Don't ever force that. Because what happens is then when you come back to where you were, it's not going to feel like it's not going to feel as fast as it felt before. And this is a concept that I call velocitation. I love this term. It's from driving school, where when you speed up to, you start from 0 and you speed up to 45 and you speed up to 55, and that feels fast at first. Then you speed up to 70 and that feels really fast. Then after a few minutes, it doesn't feel fast anymore. You get this kind of false sense of security. That's what they warn you about in driving school. Then when you back down to 55 again, it feels slow. So there's this sense of velocitation, of this, like, where you are and how it feels really varies depending on which speeds you're traveling to and coming back from. Okay, so let's get to this Tick-Tock example. It starts like this. Please send in more questions. We have some time. It starts with your regular E chord tick-tock. That's the first measure. Second measure goes. Okay, so the second measure has that little walk up to the A chord, and then you're on an A chord tick-tock for a couple times. And then I have this one particular rule where I don't like to anticipate the bass note of the next chord. So you'll notice the A chord measure goes like this. That way that low E sounds fresh when you get back to the E chord. Okay? So let's play those first 4 measures of the Tick-Tock example without the track. And if you miss a walk-up, it's no big deal. The point of this is to show you how to play that pattern over any chord, and you'll be able to get through a progression. And these little walk-ups and walk-downs and the little considerations about what I call doubling down on the next bass note, those will come natural as you just play with this some. Okay, so the first 4 measures as written. Ready and a slow and. Okay. I just realized I added one extra measure. So, yeah, I sure did. There's an extra measure of E on here. You'll figure that out. I will redo this tab and send it in to you. So here's the trick though. When you get to, this is pretty simple and you'll figure it out. When we get to the E chord, that's our little walk up to the B7 chord. So open A, walk up first fret, second fret. And this is our pattern for a B7. You're basically holding a B7 chord and doing that same pattern that you did on the A chord. And you got to move your second finger down to the second fret of the E string. So just try the B7 tick-tock for a little while. So Jeff, I don't know if you can do this on the fly. I don't think you can, and I'm really sorry, but we would omit measure 17 to keep this a 12-bar blues and not a 13-bar blues, which has its place, but it's not going to line up with this track. So again, my apologies. That's your B7 tick-tock. And then you're right back to E. Okay, so let's play the entire example. Just skip measure 17 if it's still up there. Sorry about that, Jeff. All right, here we go. The Tick-Tock Rhythm, real slow without the track, and then we'll try it with the track here in a moment. 1, 2, and ready, and go, and... Here's the walk up. A. Right back to E. This is measure 18. Here's the walk up to the B. Back to E. Let's go ahead and repeat that whole thing. Ready and go. 3, 4, next one. Walk up to the A. Skip measure 17, here's measure 18. Fun. Now it's going to be even more fun. Slight hiccup again. Okay. We're going to fix the downloadable version. We're going to play this example again because we had a slight hiccup in the signal. Okay. So again, the Tick-Tock Rhythm, really, really slow. Just skip measure 17. In other words, the measure right after the A chord. That was just a typo on my part. Okay. So here we go, Tick-Tock Rhythm, really slow. 1, 2, ready and go, E chord. Walking up to the A. Skip the next measure, here's the next E chord, measure 18. Here's the walk to the B. Back to E. Then we will repeat to the top of the tick-tocks here. Walk up to the A. Measure 18 E. E7. Back to E. All right, we're tick-tocking the rhythm now. So it's going to be even more fun when we try it with the track. So let's try this at the slowest tempo. We'll just tick-tock our way through it, and let's tick-tock through it twice. Why not? Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. I just realized I was playing the version that has the electric guitar in it. Let's play the version that has the acoustic guitar in it so we can play along. How about that? Check this out. Again, tick-tocks. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, this time, there's a couple more questions coming in. We'll get to them. Please do send in your questions when you have them. This time, let's start on the tick-tock rhythm, play once through the tick-tock, and then go to the top of the song and play the whole example down, and then get back to the tick-tock so you can hear how it works going in and out of the rhythm part, okay? So starting on the tick-tock, one time through, back to the top, play the solo, all the way through both times, low octave, high octave, and then right back to the rhythm tick-tock. Okay, here we go. One, two, ready, go. Sorry, I keep playing the wrong track. Here we go. This one has the acoustic guitar in it. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. that sure is fun. I don't know about you, but that kind of music really gets me excited. Find those old Johnny Cash albums and put them on. You're going to get fired up. What amp and effects are you using? Well, I'm using a Fender Deluxe Reverb here. The Twin was a little too big for my bedroom. I believe Luther used this type of setup. He had a Fender Esquire, which the only difference between an Esquire and a Telecaster is that it doesn't have this pickup. And people say that that makes a difference because there's that much less of a magnetic pull on the strings. Sure, but really, you know, it's the same type of pickup, same type of instrument. One thing that Luther did use was flat wound strings. That's a really interesting thing that most Telecaster or country players don't do. It's kind of a jazz thing. And it's also something that strings, you know, in the old days were commonly flat wound. And that just gave him a little bit less of a bite on the string and a little bit more like girth to the notes, I guess. He used like flat wound 11s, I think, and like a medium pick. My pick is a little bit heavier, but yep. Just a good old Fender amp, you know, with some reverb on it. That's kind of what you're going for, either a deluxe or a smaller version like a Princeton or a Champ or a Blues Junior. Or if you're playing the stadiums, come on over and borrow my Twin Reverb. And that thing, man, I've never gotten that up past about 3.5 on the volume. And if I did, it would break windows. Can you show us what it would be like if you played a real solo, one that wasn't simple over the track? Ooh, that's my kind of question. I'll do that, sure. Let me get to this next question. For the muting, is it just palm muting or is the left hand helping with the muting? You can get away with just palm muting. I almost automatically kind of deaden things over here with my fretting hand. I guess that does give the strings a little less time to ring out. Really just on the higher note, I suppose, would be the correct answer for that. You want those bass notes to ring out. So you want to hear boom, tick, boom, tick, boom, tick, boom, tick. Good question. Okay, so what would it be like if you played a real solo? Well, okay, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put on the track at the faster tempo, and I'll start, you know, I'll play through this example once to try to keep it in context, and then I'm going to try to I'm not just going to blast off right away. I'm going to try to keep it in open position, first of all, and then I'm going to try to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Try to make a sensible transition from the Luther licks up into like stuff I would play. All right, so I'm just going to jam on it. How about that? Here we go.
Hey ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we've lost Tyler's feed for a second. I'm going to get in touch with him and we'll get this right back and we'll make sure you get the full example. Stay tuned. I'm talking with Tyler right now and we'll get him back online as soon as possible. Stay tuned. Be patient. Thank you so much. All right, friends, I let Tyler know that he's lost connection. He is reconnecting now. He will be right back. All right, I'm sure you can hear he's trying to reconnect here, so we'll get this for you as soon as possible. Thank you for understanding the fun of doing live remote webcasts. In the meantime, while we wait for Tyler, I did want to let you know he has several courses on Jamplay. He has 2 courses on bluegrass guitar, one that was just released, very, very good. He has a classic country chops course, which is excellent. And he does a bunch of other live courses like this that are available in the archive, all different genres, some bluegrass, some based on playing songs, some based on just playing chords. And if you're not familiar with Tyler, he is a well-regarded bluegrass player, flat picker. He even won the championships. I forget which year. So he's a great teacher, so feel free to go check out his other stuff. Now, I would also like to let you know that we actually, because of the pandemic and whatever, we extended our spring sale so that people can get in at a little cheaper price. So if you want to, feel free to go to Jamplay and check out the spring sale. It's a pretty big discount, especially if you do the year. And we are going to keep up with these live sessions and add more and more up until the point that we can finally get people back in the studio. It's looking like that might be, late June or July at this point, so we should keep these going. So stay tuned. Tyler is trying to get back on here. We're hoping the internet at his house didn't go out. As some of you might be aware, Colorado's got a pretty big snowstorm today, so it's a distinct possibility he's having some legitimate connectivity issues. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll be back as soon as we can. Still waiting on Tyler to reconnect. He keeps trying. One thing that I do remember he told me is that he's using a GoPro, and apparently it can overheat sometimes. So it might be that his GoPro has overheated. We will see. I'm sure you're hearing the little bits of audio that are coming through as he tries to reconnect here. Thank you so much for being patient, and thank you so much for joining us today. It really means a lot. Plot twist, Tyler says that his speed test results and his stream are still going, so we're trying to diagnose why there's an error in streaming here. So once again, I do apologize. We'll be back with you as shortly as we can. And in the event that Tyler cannot get this stream to start again, I do promise that we will ask him this question again next week so that nobody misses out on his elite, awesome, superb, any other superlatives you want to add in there solo. Thank you. He's trying to reconnect now, so we'll give it a shot. One more shot.
Back on. Okay, those of you who are still here, sorry about the technical glitches. We got a lot of people using the internet these days, and sometimes it just drops out. So we're restarted. The question was, can you demonstrate how you might play a real solo over these changes? So I'm going to start by playing the example, and then I will kind of develop it into something more than that. All right, so here we go. I'm just going to jam on the track to send you all out. Here we go. Okay, that was all right. You know, it's fun to indulge yourself in that kind of thing every now and then. I'm not quite warmed up on my telly playing today, but hey, there's a handful of licks in there and a handful of fun ways to express yourself, and hope you've enjoyed this lesson. We're going to continue next week, same time, 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. 6 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, we're going to do the Classic American Songs and Tunes, Part 2. So join us for that. Go ahead and send in questions anytime, and we will be getting back to you. And yeah, just take care, stay safe, stay home, and keep on picking. Thanks for joining me. Tyler Grant here at jamplay.com.